I am Thomas, and today we are in Huntington, New York, and we're going to have to use our imagination for this one. As I'll tell you a quick story about a family that has been here for, or was here for many of years. This empty plot of land, I came here just too late. I was under the impression I was still here. Nonetheless, this plot of land was the home of the Eckerts, and the house was on this lot. It was a special type of a house. So let's use our imagination, and I will tell you the story here of the Eckerts, and I think it's worth mentioning. Now, this was a long and abandoned and neglected building for many of years before it was finally knocked down. That's on Jericho Turnpike, which is where we are. And that house had a very interesting story to it. I will insert the picture of the house shortly before it was knocked down. But the family, George Eckert, he moved to Huntington from Brooklyn in 1909, joining his parents who had moved here 7 years earlier when they purchased land on the south side of Jericho Turnpike at Jericho Turnpike at Melville Boulevard, which is where we are. His parents, George and Cordelia Eckert, they operated a chicken farm and opened the first gas station in that part of town. In 1918, George Jr. purchased a large plot of land on the south side of Jericho Turnpike between Oak Crest Drive and Melville Boulevard. The Eckerts ran a small general store known as Camp Idlewild. In addition to providing household necessities, the store telephone was available to local residents who did not have their own telephone lines. Miss Eckert ran the store while Mr. Eckert operated a trucking company between Huntington and New York City. Previously, George had worked for the Long Island Railroad as a tool and die maker. His son Robert also worked for the railroad. George Eckert was active in the South Huntington Protective League, a civic association formed in 1925, shortly after the merger of the South Huntington and West Hills high school districts and the announcements of plans for a new water district. Tragedy struck in October of 1932 when Miss Eckert was hit by a car while helping a little girl cross Jericho Turnpike. She sustained fractures to her leg and skulls as well as internal injuries. She was rushed to Huntington Hospital but died a few minutes later after arriving. Now George and his son, they continued to run the store and gas station until about 1934. They then rented the store to various businesses. For many years, it was the location of the Lobster Inn, which remained in business through the late 1950s. Now, after his wife's death, George Eckert, he built a castle, and this is how the home looked like before it was demolished. He built the castle as a shrine in memory of his wife. Well, at least that's what he thought it was. Considered it a castle. He gathered rocks from near and far in his truck to mix with cement to form the walls of the circular castle. In the middle of the three-story castle was a 70-foot tall tree. The first floor of the castle was used for storage and for the coal furnace. The second floor contained a kitchen, bedroom, and library. The third floor was partially enclosed, and it had included a rooftop garden for their plants. The grounds around the castle were described as park-like. In the later years, he would retreat to his library, which included hundreds of books on a variety of topics. His family sometimes wouldn't see him for days. His son Robert lived nearby on the property. Tragedy struck again in 1950 when a newspaper truck driver noticed flames coming from the castle. He called in an alarm from a nearby restaurant, but by the time the firefighters arrived, the fire, which had started in a coal furnace, was out of control. The firefighters could not enter the building. When they were finally able to gain entry, the 75-year-old recluse was found slumped outside his bedroom. He apparently suffocated. George's son Robert continued to live on the property until his death in 1963. Later generations would still live in this area. The Eckert family of Huntington, New York. I hope all is well. I look forward to speaking to you guys very, very soon. Take care.